Hi guys, you're in the studio with Luke from GuitarIQ.com. Thank you for sitting in on this video. Today we'll be looking at the latest version of GarageBand and how it compares to Logic Pro 10 for guitar players. Now, it's got to be said straight away that this isn't exactly a fair fight. GarageBand comes free with your Mac, whereas Logic Pro 10 will set you back a couple of $100s. So why are we comparing them in the first place? Well, it's because Apple have made it pretty difficult not to, whereas both of the previous versions of GarageBand and Logic look and feel very distinct from one another. As soon as you open up the new GarageBand, it basically looks like the latest version of Logic Pro 10. So let's have a quick look around and see how they compare. So just by having a look at this interface, you can see it has the same style and feel as Logic Pro 10. We even have some of the same exact buttons across the top here, including this new and improved guitar tuner that we saw introduced to Logic Pro 10. Another notable feature here is, of course, smart controls from Logic as well. If we click on the library button up here, we can see this looks again very familiar. We have all of these presets here that we can cycle through. If we come over to the right here and click on this button, you can see we bring up Amp Designer from Logic Pro. Now, the bling here is a little bit different, but everything else functions the same. We even have the same microphones that were included in the latest version of Logic as well. If we come over to the next button, we can bring up the pedal board. Now, this has a stack of guitar pedals here, including again some of these new pedals that we saw in the latest version of Logic. So I've actually done some video tutorials on some of these new features from Logic if you're interested to check them out. But just by having a quick play around here, you can see there's a lot of things included that guitar players are definitely going to find helpful. So when you start adding up all of these new features, it certainly does appear that there are some pretty significant upgrades here for GarageBand users, especially when you take into account some of the other new features like the inclusion of Drummer, which was really one of the big talking points of Logic Pro 10. So how does this actually compare to Logic Pro for guitar players? Well, despite this being a clear and intentional step closer toward Logic, it seems you could almost say that Apple have been equally as intentional with what they've left out as they have been with what they've included. For example, I have here some smart controls from a basic audio track. You can see I have control over some compression and some EQ settings and even some reverb, but I can't actually seem to get in there and adjust the parameters that these controls themselves are adjusting. One of the best features of smart controls in Logic Pro 10 is how highly customizable and creative we can actually get with these controls, and that same functionality doesn't really seem to exist here. Additionally, some of the other big new features to Logic Pro have also been left out, such as track stacks and flex pitch, but ultimately that's fairly understandable in that I'm sure Apple aren't wanting to give absolutely everything away. In general though, it's this same issue of limited functionality that really holds GarageBand back in its versatility and usefulness when compared to some other DAWs. For example, again, not having a dedicated mixer where we can create submixers and get creative with our auxiliary sends and so forth is really a huge limitation here. Having said all of that, there are a couple of additional things that are worth noting here. Firstly, this EQ button brings up this really nice looking EQ interface as a default on each track. This is very usable, and I think this is a great addition to GarageBand. And secondly, there seems to be some confusion over whether or not you can use plugins with the latest release of GarageBand. If I come back to this Smart Controls tab and click on the information button, you can see we have an area here for audio units. Now, this has to be enabled from our preferences menu, but it's definitely included in the latest version of GarageBand. So to conclude, with a lot of the limitations that are here, I would certainly struggle when it comes to workflow, especially in the context of mixing bigger projects. But it's pretty hard to criticize GarageBand for its limitations. It comes free with your Mac. It's not really intended to compete with some of the more advanced software like Logic Pro. And what it is intended to do, it does quite well. So again, having said that, Apple have been quite intentional with what they haven't included. You could also say they've been reasonably generous with what they have. If I didn't already own Logic as a guitar player, I would have no real issues using GarageBand as a basic tool for getting ideas together or creating simple backing tracks. You can see they've tried to make things really simple and intuitive for people, especially if you're just starting out, which is great. So that's a quick look at the latest version of GarageBand and how it compares to Logic Pro 10 for guitar players. Let me know what you think. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. As I mentioned, I have done a bunch of tutorials exploring some of these new features from Logic Pro 10. A lot of that's now going to be relevant to GarageBand users, so make sure you check them out. If you're just interested in more content like this generally, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. If any of the videos help you out, then please leave some feedback or click on the like button. Make sure you check us out at the website as well, guitariq.com. You can also connect with the channel on Facebook and Google+ now. All of the links are going to be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.